Hey guys, I'm back with the next part of our e-commerce grocery app using .NET MAUI, and this is going to be I guess part 6. So before continuing on this part, I would recommend you all to check out all the previous parts of this series. I'm going to drop the links of all those parts in the description box, so please do check those out. Alright, so in previous part we were working on our API and we have created these entities in the API. We created DB context, we added some migrations, and then we were adding seeding data, and we added seed data for user and roles, and after that we had to do this for category and offers. So I actually added the data to categories and offer entities. So we are following the same pattern, having the seed data method in the entity class itself. So I'm using these. I copied over these things, the seeding data, and after that in our data context, the same way in previous video we added the seeding data for role and users, and now we are doing the same thing for category and offers. So this thing I have done. Now next we need to run the migrations for these. So for that, let me set API as startup project, package manager console, and from here we'll add a migration. Add migration, let's say seeding data, and this will not work. Oh, sorry. Let me stop this and then set the default project at the API project. And it is frozen, so let's wait for it to error out. Fine, it we can see the error. Now let's set it to API, add migration seeding data, and now we'll update database. Update database. And we have some error, and the error is credit column string or binary data would be truncated in the table. Credit column length is not right. So let's see in the categories. Credit we have set 150, but the length is more than 150. Okay, let's change it to 300 characters. Save it, and we'll delete the latest migration. Fine, and then we'll add the migration again, but I don't think we needed that because the length it gets validated when we apply those migrations. But let's say seeding data, update database. It is fine. Okay, so now our API is ready for these category of our users and roles. Now let's go to API's program.cs. We'll add our endpoints. So we have this default template. We have weather forecast, so we don't need this. Let's remove this weather forecast. Let's remove this record as well, and now it is cleaned up. First thing, we'll change the URL, so we will hard code it. For now we can get it from maybe from database settings or maybe app settings, but for now I'm having it hard coded only. So https localhost colon, and let's have anything 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, save. And after this we need to have let's try minimal API for this. We'll see. So for that we will first have endpoints to get the categories and our offers, because those two things we are displaying on the UI for now. So here we'll say this, then we'll inject our data context. Let's say context, and from here we'll simply return await context dot categories dot as node tracking dot to array async. And we are good. And same thing we need for offers. Offers, and instead of categories we'll say offers, and same. Let's map these, let's group these. So we'll say masters group, and here we'll say app dot map group. So this is masters data which does not depend on the user authentication. So what we'll do here, we'll have this masters prefix, and then we'll use allow anonymous, which is default, but let's have it explicit. So we are allowing anonymous access of this group, and then we'll change this app to this group. So now we have these two endpoints, slash master slash categories, then slash master slash offers. Fine, this should work. Let's try it if we can access this. So API HTTPS, fine, let's run. Or maybe let's fail to bind to address already in use. Okay. Oh, maybe because of that HTTP client factory thing I use same port. Okay, let me stop that API. Fine, let's run it now. And it is running on 1 2 3 4 5. Let's try in browser. So we'll use localhost 1 2 3 4 5. And then our URL, we have masters and then categories, and we can see the categories. Same thing for offers, we can see the offers as well. Fine, so our URLs are working. Cool. Now our API is working. Next thing, we need to connect this API from our .NET MAUI app. So for that, let's first stop it and set this project as startup, our MAUI project. And then in services, so in this project we are going to use HTTP client factory to connect to our API, but we have a situation, we need to connect to the API which is hosted on our local host. So I already created two videos on how to connect our .NET MAUI app to localhost APIs. One is for HTTP and one is over HTTPS, but those were using plain custom HTTP client. Basically we were creating object of HTTP client. Then yesterday I published one more video in which I showed you how to connect our .NET MAUI app to localhost API over HTTPS by using HTTP client factory. So I would recommend you guys to check out that video, because in that video I showed how to do this, and I'm going to use the same approach in this project. So I'm going to drop the link of that video in the description and I box, so please do check that video out, and we'll do that thing in this project. First thing, in order to use HTTP Client Factory, we need to install a NuGet package, that is Microsoft Extensions HTTP. Microsoft Extensions HTTP install. Okay. It's done. Yeah. Now let's go to Maui program, and in here we'll set uh, builder.services.add HTTP client, and here we'll use, first we need to provide a name. So for this name we'll add it to our constants. Do we have constants folder? No. Let's create a constants folder. Constants, and here we'll add our constants class app constants public static class app constants, and here we'll say public const string, and we'll say HTTP client name, and we can name it whatever we want. So we'll say, let's say FNV fruit and vegetable HTTP client. Fine, and we'll use this in here. So we'll say constants dot app constants dot HTTP client name, and then second parameter we can configure our client, which is an action delegate which gets a parameter of type HTTP client. So we'll use this HTTP client, and then we'll set the base address for this. So HTTP client dot base address, which should be our HTTPS localhost, but because we are going to test it in our emulators, we cannot connect to localhost from Android emulator, right? So for this also I would recommend you to check out those videos, and we'll use that approach. So we'll have base address, then we will check device info dot platform, on which platform this application is currently running on. So if this is device platform dot Android, if this is Android, then we would have our base address as 10.0.2.2 and then our port, which is 12345. And if that's not the case, so for iOS it will be same localhost 12345. This is our port. Fine. So we have this base address. We'll set it to HTTP client's base address, new URI, and we'll set this. Now this is fine. The only issue is, if you are following my videos, you would already know this approach does not work directly on HTTPS, because this HTTPS, the certificate, our localhost generated this certificate. So the Android emulator and iOS emulator, those does not validate this certificate, those do not trust this certificate. So we need to do some workaround for this, and I already showed you this in that video, but we'll use the same thing but with an alternate approach. In that video I showed or maybe no, in yesterday's video we'll follow the same approach. So we'll have interface in the main root project. So let's have interfaces here, and here we'll have one interface which is for new item interface, which will be iPlatform HTTP message handler. So the way it is going to work, we need to provide our own implementation of HTTP message handler to the HTTP client, which will bypass the server check basis, server certificate check. So this interface, it is going to have only one method which will be of type HTTP message handler, and we'll get HTTP message handler. Fine, let me clean this. And now for its implementations, we'll have implementations in platform folders. So in Android, we will have its implementation where we'll say Android HTTP message handler, and it will implement this interface, and from here we'll return something, and that something is new Android message handler. And here we have one property, server certificate custom validation callback. We'll provide value for this, and it is a func of type this which returns bool. So we'll use this func. Let's have HTTP, let's call it certificate, let's call it chain, and this is SSL policy errors. And from here we'll return something, and that something is going to be certificate dot issuer if this is CN equals localhost. This is the certificate issuer for our localhost. Or SSL policy errors is equals SSL policy error dot none. So if that's the case, it should simply, we are saying if this is localhost, just bypass it, just return true. Else do the actual thing. If we don't have any error, then return true. If we have some error, then return false. Okay, this is for Android, and same thing we'll do for iOS. And for iOS, we'll create a new class which is iOS HTTP message handler, and this class will also implement this interface using this and implement interface. Fine. And from here we'll return NSURL session handler, which is implementation of HTTP message handler for iOS. And here we have a property trust override for URL. We need to pass body for this, and this thing gets this delegate NSURL session handler trust override for URL callback, which returns a boolean, and the parameters it gets are these three parameters. So let's use these. Fine. And from here we need to return something, and that something is URL dot starts with HTTPS localhost. If it starts with this, we'll bypass the server certificate check. Let me clean this up, and we are good. Now we need to register this iPlatform HTTP message handler in our Maui program. So here what we'll do, we'll say builder.services.add singleton iPlatform HTTP message handler, and we'll register it. We'll provide implementations, implementation instance service provider. So it will get service provider, and it will return the implementation, and that implementation will be, we'll say return new platforms dot android message handler. This will work for Android, but what about iOS? If this is on iOS, then this is not work. So what we'll do, we'll have conditional compilation here. So we'll say if the platform is Android, then do this. Else if the platform is iOS, then return new platforms dot iOS HTTP message handler. Right, we are currently our app supports only these two mobile devices, so we'll do for these two only. And if you want other platform as well, you can simply implement this iPlatform message handler in the those folders, Mac, Catalyst, Windows or Tizen. Then you can do the same thing. So we are on Android. Let's go to Android and we are fine. Just we need to end this if. Okay, now we have this. After this, we have this builder service add HTTP client. Now we'll configure the HTTP message handler. So for that, we'll say configure HTTP message handler builder, which gets a configuration builder, config builder, and from this config builder, we have a property which is primary handler. We need to set this, and this is of type HTTP message handler. HTTP message handler. We need to provide platform specific HTTP message handler for this. So for that, what we can do, we can get the platform HTTP message handler, and this we can get from config builder dot services dot get required service, and we'll get the implementation of this interface. And then from this handler object, we can simply call get HTTP message handler method. So now our HTTP client registration is done. Save everything and we should be good now. Now next thing is we need to use this HTTP client factory where we are getting our data, and we are getting our data. For now we are getting just categories and offers. So let's go to our services, category service here. Now we don't need all this thing. So this seeding data and all this thing, because we moved this data to our API. So we will get this data from there. So what we need to do, we'll simply create constructor, and then we'll inject HTTP client factory, HTTP client factory, and from here we can get our client. So what I am going to do, okay, we can get the client when we need it. So if the underscore category is null, we'll do this small caching here for categories. So if this is null, then we'll get our categories from the API. And how can we get that? First, we need to get the HTTP client, and that we can get from HTTP client factory dot create client, and we'll pass our client's name, and that we can get from app constants dot HTTP client name. So now we have our HTTP client, and from this HTTP client, now we can simply request our connect to our API basically. So here what we'll do, we'll say var response equals, we'll say await HTTP client dot get async, and the URL we have, that is masters categories. Okay, we'll get our response, then we'll simply check if response dot if success status code. If the request was successful, then we'll get our data in this content await response content read as string async, and then we'll set this data to our underscore categories. So we'll say underscore categories equals JSON serializer dot deserialize enumerable of category of content, this thing. Fine. And if that's not the case, we'll simply from else we will return enumerable dot empty category, and then all this we don't need. And if we got the data successfully, then we have this thing. Okay, let's add one more thing here. If string dot is null or empty content, if we have some data in content, then only we'll try to deserialize it. Fine, we'll set underscore category and then we'll return underscore category. Cool. So we have this category data, and same thing let's do for public class offers service. We'll create one more service for our offers, and here we'll have the same constructor I HTTP client factory. We'll inject it HTTP client factory, and then we'll have one method here. So we'll say public async task, and it is going to return enumerable of offers. We'll say get active offers async. We'll just get active offers, and then we'll follow the same approach here. The only thing which is going to be changed is this offers, and from here we'll return this, and this is not going to be an else part. This will always be like this. Instead of category, it should be offer, and this should also be offer. And we are good. We don't need this. Fine. So we have this logic common duplicated basically. So we'll move this logic out to a separate service, and in any way we'll need that, because it's always better idea to funnel all your calls from some centralized service, because later we will need to pass token to all the calls. So if this logic will be at a centralized place, we can simply add the token logic in single place, and same goes with handling the exceptions of HTTP calls. So we can handle those from a single place. So we'll do this later. Now let's move this offer service to a separate class file, offer service. Fine. Now let's register these category and offer services. So we are here. Let's register builder.services.addTransient. We'll say, oh, category service is already there. So here we'll simply register builder.services.addTransient, and we'll say offer service. So the lifetime does not matter for this here, but if you want we can have it at singleton also. But because we are using this offers only on the home page, we are not actually utilizing the complete offers functionality, so it should be good. Fine, we have offer service, we have category service. Now let's go to our view model. Here, from here we are getting these two data like this. So this thing will work, but offer.getOffers, if we go here, now we can get rid of all these things because we don't need these, right? And then this BG color, the data we are going to get from API, it has the type of BG color as string, but on our UI in our mobile app we need it as a color. So we have two approaches. Either we can have this BG color property as a computed property, so we can say we'll do this thing string BG color, then we can say something like background color, and then we can do this thing, and we'll use this approach color.from hex, and then we can use the BG color here like this. Or the second approach we can have, we can use converters to convert that background color to color, actually the type color. So this is string, but we need type color. Fine, first we'll do that. We'll use converter approach. But before that, let's go to here. Yeah, now this is not going to work because we don't have offer.get offers now. What we have offer service. We need to inject offer service, offer service, offer service, offer service, and then we can say offer service dot get active offers listing. Now it will work, but there is one problem with this approach, the performance problem. What it is doing currently, the execution will come here, it will await here, it will do things, then it will go there. But these two offers and categories, these are not dependent on each other. So what we can have, we can have these as parallel. So what we'll do, we will simply have where offers task, and then we'll have this thing here. So we triggered the offers call, we did not await it, then we trigger category call, we are awaiting on category, then now these two are in parallel. When this is completed, we'll come here and we'll await offers task. So these two things will run in parallel in this particular case. Fine, I think we should be good now. Let's try to run it. Okay, first we need to have our API running. API run start without debugging, and we have our API running. Now we'll run our app. App is here, it's running, and we can see something is there, but these things are not working. We cannot see anything here, and we can see something is here as well, but what is it, we don't know. So let's see what the issue is. We'll go to our pages, home page, and here we'll see, okay, this thing is coming from this string format. We have these three exclamation marks after this text, so that means there is some text. We have some data, but we cannot see it. So that may be because we have this background color is not working. So let's fix this first. So let's stop the app for now, and we know from API we are returning string bg color, and on UI we need that color to be the instance of the color class. So we need a converter. So in our Maui project, let's create a new folder for converters, converter, and in this converter we'll create one class which will be the string to color converter. Okay, and this will be derived from base converter one way, because we need a one-way conversion from a string to color. This is what we need. So implement abstract class, public class, we can leave this as well, and here we'll do one thing, and that one thing is going to be color dot from hex value. That's it. We need this thing only. Now we need to use this converter on our page. Stop. So for that, let's go to our page, which is home page, and here we'll add that converter. Before that, we need to add namespace for that. So let's say converters, fine, and here we'll add that is converters string to color converter. We need to provide a key for this. So let's say string to color. color. Fine. Now we'll use this when we are setting our BG color. This is our BG color on offers. So let's set it. Here we'll say converter and it will be static resource. Not offers task. What was its name? String to color. Static resource this. Okay, now let's run it again. App is here, something is happening, screen does not show some anything. We should have some loader here, activity indicator that something is happening. Where is our API? Is our API doing something? Oh, our API is not running. This is going to error out. Stop it. Let's run the API. So we definitely need that activity indicator for sure. We'll do that. Run the API and now API is running. Run the app. App is here. And we can see something. Okay, we have 4 items. We had 4 offers and nothing else is here. We cannot see color. Okay, let's see what the issue is. For that we'll have, let's go to offers. We'll have a breakpoint here. We'll see if we are getting the actual data, the correct data or not. One more here. Let's run it again. API is running. Okay, breakpoint. Okay, the request is successful. And in content we can see the content, ID, title of, description, where is color, BG color, we have this color, we have color for all the records, right? Then continue, continue, continue. We have this offer. Let's see what we have in offer. We have everything is null and that's because, okay, I got it what the issue is. So system.text.json, what we are getting from the API, we are getting it in camel case. So it is not able to deserialize it directly. We need to pass JSON serializer to get the actual data. So for that, what we can do, we can say new JSON serializer settings, JSON serializer options, and in here we'll say there is some property name case insensitive. We can set it to true. So that means we need to do the same thing for our category API. And yeah, this is also again the same thing. We can control this by having a intermediate service. So we'll do this later so that we can have all these configuration, all these things at a centralized place. Cool. We have this, save everything and run. App is coming. We had this breakpoint. Let's remove this breakpoint. We don't need this breakpoint, I think. And yes, things are working now. Okay. We have this offer section, background color, description, code, title, and then for categories as well, we have category name and image. So things are working, but this time from API. Okay. And we have one thing. So right now, from our categories, the URLs, if we check category, the seeding data, we had this fruits.png, vegetable.png. We are getting the direct name of the files because it is working, because we already had these files in our Mayu projects resource folder in images, right? So what we'll do next, we'll remove these images from here because we need these images to get from the API. So these will be URI image source, and we'll have those images as a part of this API. Okay, and then we'll start. Okay, so next thing we'll do, first we'll fix these images. Then second thing we'll do, we'll have a centralized service to handle these HTTP requests, the JSON serialization and these exception handling and all these things. After that we'll continue working on the next part, which is going to be our products list. Okay, so all this we'll do in our next part, and that's all for this part. Please like this video, share this video, and subscribe my channel. I'll be back with the next part soon. Till then, bye bye.